I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of Retention as a Service agency, Electric. And today I'm talking with Billy McClennan, Director of Partnerships at customer service platform Gorgias. Thanks for coming on, Billy. Super excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
So before we jump into all the things that I want to cover today about customer service and retention, can you just give everybody a quick background on yourself?
Yeah, happy to. So short background. My background education-wise is actually chemistry. So I went to school to become a chemist and did my master's in chemistry. I was working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 as a chemist in a lab, and some cool things out of it, but wasn't the most exciting thing. So I actually jumped into e-commerce after meeting a couple of guys finishing school at MIT, and they were launching a wearable device. So it was a muscle oxygen sensor. And without going into too much of the details, it was a device used for athletes, mostly triathletes, cyclists, and runners to train. And so we basically commercialized it and wanted to go direct to consumer with it. So we didn't want it just to be a device to sell to academic labs for research. And so that was really how I got into e-commerce. We scaled that up to over $1 million a year within the first year, and ultimately ended up exiting it to another wearable company. And after that, or through that journey, I had met Roman, one of the founders at Gorgias, when they were just 15 people, and joined to lead our strategy on the partnership side. Now I'm at Gorgias.
It's a fascinating backstory, because sometimes I ask for backstories and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's like pretty cookie cutter, but that's fascinating. Chemist.
I could talk a lot longer than that. I was trying to be quick, but yeah, I definitely have a few interesting stories along the way.
How many team members is Gorgias at now? If you joined when they were 15, what are there, like 1,000 now?
Not quite 1,000 yet, but yeah. So Gorgias, I didn't explain what Gorgias was. So let me know if you wanted me to go into more detail on that.
Yeah, let's do the background on Gorgias too, and then we can.
Yeah. So what Gorgias is it's a help desk solution built specifically for e-commerce stores. So what does that mean? So essentially, what we do is we help direct-to-consumer merchants provide really good customer support. So they use our platform to bring in all of their communication channels. So things like email, live chat, social, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, phone, SMS, essentially every channel, we bring it into one place. And then we connect with their e-commerce store. So, think Shopify, Magento, BigCommerce. So they have all of that information about the customer, what they've purchased, when they purchased, their shipping information, their subscription information. We bring it all into one place so that the agent on the other end or the automation can respond back really quickly to, get that customer what they want, to just give a really good experience when a brand is interacting with their customer. So that's what Gorgias is in a nutshell. To answer your first question about the size, I joined when we were about 15 to 20 people. Gorgias is about 250 people now, and we work with over 10,000 direct consumer focused e-commerce merchants.
Is that primarily Shopify still, or is it a mix that you're seeing more and more of some of the other platforms?
Yeah, so it's a mix, but it's heavily skewed towards Shopify. So like you said, when we went to market, we launched specifically for Shopify merchants. We've expanded since then. So we support BigCommerce and Magento merchants as well. But to give you kind of a breakdown of that 10,000 number, I think about 94% of them are on Shopify and Shopify Plus. So it's still very heavily Shopify focused, but we've been making a lot of progress with BigCommerce and Magento as well.
Got it. I mean, I wonder how much of that is also just there's more merchants on Shopify versus on some of the other platforms.
Yeah. Definitely more merchants on Shopify. BigCommerce did release their quarterly earnings a couple of weeks ago, and while Shopify was going through a big round of layoffs, BigCommerce actually had pretty steady growth. I think they grew close to 40% year over year from the previous quarter. And I think they're at, almost 6,000, what they consider enterprise merchants. So yeah, they're doing really good in like the B2B and then the upper end of the mid-market and enterprise space recently.
Yeah, it's interesting how much like the positioning and just like focus, because e-commerce is such a massive just landscape, that there's room for multiple just ginormous players to sort of pick and choose what are the areas that they're going to focus on. And it feels like big commerce really went heavily into like the B2B commerce side and have gotten a lot of traction there. Almost like, and maybe not completely the same as Gorgias, but you never really had a e-commerce only customer service platform, I think, before you all. And it's not like customer service platforms were some novel like new thing that you came up with. You just, it was the positioning and the focus lasered on that I think has allowed you to grow and be so successful so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you nailed it. So basically where we, found our success early on and to date, even still to date, is like you said. So a customer support help desk isn't a new tool. Everybody's familiar with Zendesk, which is kind of the legacy help desk. Really what we did differently is we focused on e-commerce customer support. And within e-commerce, it's very specific and it's very different than, like healthcare or a large corporate, airline company or something like that. E-commerce customer support is very repetitive. And for the most part, if it's a merchant selling like a decent volume of, if they're shipping a decent volume of packages every month, it's very repetitive. So it's the same 10 questions. It's, my order didn't arrive. What's my order status? How can I return? How can I cancel? How can I exchange? And it sounds easy. It's like, oh, the same 10 questions, but I think a lot of, other help desks, they weren't focused on that specific vertical. So they weren't able to build the automation and pull in the right data to streamline those types of questions. And then the second piece, when it comes to e-commerce, is that merchants or brands, they're looking to, when they're talking with customers, they want to drive revenue. And I think customer support has this misconception that it's just something that, every business has to have. And it's just a cost center. It just costs you a bunch of money every month to hire agents and respond to customers, where people aren't thinking about it as a retention tool or, as a revenue driver. And so that's really what Gorgias decided to focus on.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading something where if your customer has a negative experience, but then like through interacting with the customer service team, like you really go out of your way to make it right for them, like they're going to turn into one of your biggest advocates. They're probably going to have a higher lifetime value than a customer who never had that type of bad experience, but then had it like sort of reinforced positively via the CS team. So it was interesting for me to go through that. And one of the things that interests me the most about Gorgias, because I'm like, we're usually pretty deep into our clients' Klaviyo accounts, and there's so much data and all the different ways that you can sort of slice and segment people down different paths. It's really the same with Gorgias, because you have all the data in there as well, but you can create these automations to have, I mean, where's my order is the simplest one, but that's the best example of how you can take away 30% of tickets from customer service agents by just automating it. And that's just the baseline. You can continue to go on from there even more.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you really nailed it. And there's two things with that, right? Yeah, like you need to respond about order status, but it's time consuming. So if you can automate it, that frees up time for the agents to focus on, a lot of the pre-sale inquiries that people are getting through support as well. So that's when you start to talk about the revenue component of it. And of course, when it comes to retention, like if someone's package doesn't arrive and you can't help them with that experience, they're going to leave a pretty negative review about their order not arriving. They're probably not going to purchase again. And it's probably going to prevent other people from purchasing, if they're looking at those reviews or hearing about those things online.
Yeah, I mean, filtering through like most of our clients, like Akendo accounts, if you look at all the 1 and 2 star reviews, most of the time it has to do with the actual like delivery of the product or the product arriving damaged or things that easily be addressed and actually have nothing to do with the product itself. It's more so the transportation and how it got there, or other things that are really just out of the brand's control.
Yeah. And one kind of just like tip that I would have for a brand with this, and we just published an ebook, and this was in it as well. But I think a lot of one way that you can kind of fix this problem is a lot of people want full visibility on the journey of, purchasing their package or purchasing your product to actually receiving it. And yes, everybody knows shipping delays happen sometimes, but if you can give them visibility on like why it was delayed or where it is in the process, that's also going to help that's going to put them at ease, and they're not going to be as frustrated for a shipping delay. So I like to use the example of a jewelry company that we work with. And essentially one thing that they started implementing was when they shipped their package, and I think they're using Klaviyo for this, actually, they started dripping email campaigns showing the showing the like process of how their jewelry is manufactured, because it was custom. So they would say, hey, like we just shipped it. The first process is like sending your rendering and what you want to our manufacturer. Then they go through and design the mold. And then from the mold, they, they build the material, and then we have people that actually package it and ship it, and they ship it to you. And they were dripping this over the process of like, let's say it's a week or 2 weeks, however long it takes to get it, so that people actually saw like, hey, there's a lot of work that goes into making your thing, making your personalized item. And so if there is a delay, I think people, basically they were saying is that people understood like, hey, we understand this is a process, and they actually, they were complaining less about shipping delays and things like that. So that's just one example of kind of like giving visibility to,
yeah. And I mean, if you're a customer of that brand and you purchase from them and you don't hear from them for a week and a half, I mean, it's going to pop in your head at some point. And this happens to me all the time. Like, hey, where the hell is that thing that I ordered a week and a half ago? And you got to go find it. And you're like, then you're annoyed because you had to go and do that. But by the brand doing that, not only are they getting like the wow factor and like, oh, look, this is so cool. Look at the whole process. It's something that like you'd want to like share with your friends, but you also get the added benefit of not having to deal with the where's my order and what's happening.
Exactly. And we do have that issue, just to add to that. And someone does reach out and say, hey, my order hasn't arrived. When you respond and say, oh, hey, like, there was a delay. Here's the, information about your tracking. We're working really hard to get it to you. They're a little bit more understanding if they've seen, what happened, is right. What it takes to actually get that product to you. So that was just one example that I thought was really well done from somebody, to make that the shipping experience a little bit nicer.
Yeah, we started putting our transactional journeys in Klaviyo so that we could do automated shipment delay emails and texts. So like if your package moves into the next status, so let's say it was being like prepared to ship and now it's been like shipped or it's in transit, whatever, if it hasn't moved to the next stage within a set period of time, then like just another automatic email will go out to the customer letting them know like, hey, sorry, but there's a slight delay in your order. It's not as necessarily specific as the example that you use, but that cuts down on customer service tickets quite a bit.
Yeah, and to that point, and this is like a huge topic, a huge focus for us, but what I call that is self-service. So basically, like most consumers today, or pretty much everybody from my experience, our CTO said this, but the best customer support is no customer support. Like if everything was perfect with the product, it getting there, everything, you would never have someone reach out, which would be amazing for a business and it's an amazing experience for the customer, but like that's never going to happen. But what you can do is what we call self-service. And so if you can help a customer basically get the information they need without having to reach out to support, that's valued even more than, or as much as having phone as a channel where somebody can actually call you about customer support, because they can get the information without having to reach out to somebody. So one, it's instant and it's quick, which is one of the most important things you can focus on in customer support. If there's one takeaway from this, it's like responding quick. And two, it's a good experience because they don't need to reach out to the support team. So what you said about, automatically providing like shipping updates, that's a form of self-service because, they might have otherwise reached out to support when you're providing them that information proactively.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we have functionality around, that exact thing, basically giving them information they need without actually having to reach out to a support team. So
is there any data around the preferred support channel? Like, is it email, is it phone, is it chat? Because I have very strong preferences.
What's your preference?
Chat by far, or text. Like I don't want to get on the phone with you because most likely I'm doing something else at the same time too, or like be on a meeting and like I need to take care of this other thing at the same time. So chat or text, and then email is just the worst, I think, because I want it instantaneously, and it just never happens instantaneously. There's all these threads. You get some like NPS survey or whatever it is at random intervals, even though the ticket hasn't actually been resolved yet. So I'm a big proponent of the chat.
Yeah, chat. I feel the same way, and I'll answer your question in a second. But when it comes to chat, I don't know how you feel about like. So I use Expedia as an example because they have a pretty good like self-serve chat functionality, or even Amazon. If you look at not their chat, but all of the self-serve flows about like canceling and refunding, those are the best experiences, because usually with Expedia, like if we stick with that example, you need to make a change to your flight. Like you can go through the chat, but the chat bot or the chat flows get you all the way to the point from like starting it to finishing it with changing your flight. And you never actually talk to a human, and it's like instant. Like you just put in your information, they make the update for you. And with Amazon, when it comes to, returning an order, you just click a return button. They send you a shipping label. You can literally schedule the pickup from there. And then you just put the package outside on the street or, outside of your door, and they pick it up. So that's like the definition of self-serve. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you like chat too, because it's usually,
I do like it though when there is a path to a real person, because sometimes there's just nuance or it just doesn't work within all the automations that they already have set up. And nothing is more annoying for me than having to deal with like Uber Eats, because there literally is no path to a human being. And so, like for example, I think I placed an order, let's say it was like Sunday night, and they just didn't bring me an entire item. It was fine, whatever else. I just submitted it, and they gave me like a $5 credit to my next order. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? There's like a $30 item. Like I want just give me the $30 back. But there was no path for me to get there. I like tried a bunch of different options, nobody to talk to. It's like that is where I feel like self-service just goes wrong, because you don't even have the opportunity to be able to speak with somebody.
So you make a perfect point. Like you always need to be able to hand off, because automation, it can deflect a lot and answer a lot, but when it can't, there's nothing more frustrating than going through a loop and not getting you on. So there's self-service, but to add to what you just said, you always need to be able to hand off to somebody if that self-service can't respond to that person. To answer your first question about the most, preferred or popular channel. So by far the most used channel is like email. Email still accounts for like 90% of like tickets, even though it's like do
you think that's at all because brands don't put the chat on their site?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think email is it's been the de facto like support channel forever. So I think like shifting mindsets. Now, that being said, like chat has grown a lot over the years in terms of like the percentage of tickets coming through chat. And then if you look at things like Facebook Messenger and Instagram DMs, like those, if you combine all those, like those are starting to eat into the percentage of tickets, like they are growing, but email's just been there. The other channel that a lot of people say they prefer, and you said you hate, is phone. A lot of people like to have phone because they think it's personal and you have direct access to the brand. But phone is also one of the most frustrating channels to deal with because of hold times and passovers and all of those things. And so when you talk about chat and I talk about self-service, there's a stat that basically says that consumers value self-service as much as they value phone, because they can get the information they want without having to talk to somebody. So it's super valuable to do that, but you need a handover process, because then it becomes frustrating if you can't get your credit back. So I like DoorDash's support because they have self-service, but you can always get to somebody. For context, they always have someone on chat instantly 24/7.
I'm gonna start DoorDashing.
Yeah, you're gonna leave Uber for DoorDash because of good customer support. There's a perfect example of retention.
Yeah. So how are you educating brands around not looking at customer service as a cost center? Because that is definitely historically how it's been looked at. And more I'm seeing, like I'll go on a website and I have the Gorgias chat pop up and somebody's like trying to talk to me to help guide the buying decision process. Obviously that is like proactive. That's not being looked at as a cost center that, oh, let's hide it and outsource it and never care about it. So what are some of the things that you're doing, and what are some of the like success stories you've seen around that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to untackle here, but I think educating people or brands and founders on customer support and the positive impact it can have on your business versus the cost center. There's, I think, two things. One, I think it's been very difficult up until recently to actually track, like, I think everybody knows their support team at some point has answered like a pre-sale ticket that led to a sale, but I think it's been very hard to actually track that. The same way that like you as an email expert can track that 20% of a brand's revenue is coming directly from email marketing. Like, I don't think people have have ever really tracked that. So what we're trying to do is we've set up revenue tracking and automations with tagging and stuff like that to be able to track like this interaction from the support team led to this much revenue. And so, a seasoned support team can then go to the founder and say, hey, look, like we're generating this much revenue. It's almost as much as your email revenue. So like we should get more budget to kind of like build out our support team for this. And so tracking is an important piece to show the value. And then the other way that we do it, to your point, is we talk about like the proactiveness of customer support. So you had mentioned like chat campaigns. So yeah, with Gorgias, you can, on a product page, if someone goes to that product page and they sit on that page for 10 seconds, maybe they're reading something, you can proactively target them and you can pop it up and say, hey, just so you know, like we have a sale on this specific product. Like here's this discount code to check out. Or like, hey, I know this can be overwhelming. There's 12 shades for this specific lipstick, reach out to us and let us know if you'd like, us to consult with you on like what could look good with your skin color and your hair color and things like that. So people are like, oh yeah, I can actually, it's the same thing as in store. That's how I explain it. It's like the in-store experience. When you go in store to buy something at a good store, usually you have someone coming up to you and saying, hey, like, this is what's for sale. Let me know if you need help. I can start a dressing room for you. So you can use something like chat in the same manner online. And it generates a lot of pre-sale inquiries. And if your support team is trained to be able to kind of make product recommendations and give discount codes and things like that, you can generate a lot of sales. So that's kind of how I try to explain it to people is, talking, the better you can talk to your customers, the more likely they're going to purchase. And we have data on that too. We have data on conversion rates from things like SMS and and stuff.
I think being able to actually put a revenue number to it is really powerful as well, and maybe allows founders or just management teams the ability to say, oh wow, like we actually shouldn't be spending or trying to spend as little as possible on the CS team, because that's historically what I've heard from brands. How can we make it cheaper, and how can we really just not have it be like a core focus of what we're doing? But when you have that actual revenue number and you see how much customer interaction is going through there, I think that probably helps like people that are leading customer experience teams a lot in terms of giving their pitch on why this is such an important channel. But your in-person sort of stores associate is interesting, because for me, I personally hate that about the in-person shopping experience, because I'm just constantly thinking that like, oh, they're going to lead me to like the most expensive product, or like I'd rather just be online, because then I can cross-reference, I can look at a bunch of different reviews, sort of try and find my own path forward. But I can see how that would be beneficial too.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like the difference is like if a chat pops up to you and says, let me know if I can help, like you feel less obligated to respond to a chat messenger than someone who's in your face, speaking to you. So I guess like it works both ways for someone who doesn't want to speak to someone and someone who does. Definitely. And when it comes to sales, yeah, I think like for the marketers out there and the founders that are thinking about growth, tracking is super important. So we've kind of set that up. And if you want like a good example, go check out the website Brewmate. They're called Brewmate.
Okay.
And they actually generate a lot of revenue. I'm not going to reveal numbers, but they generate quite a bit of like significant revenue through customer support. And one of the ways they do that is they do heavily rely on those chat campaigns. So just go play around with some of their product pages, click on them, wait for the chat to pop up, and you'll see kind of some of the strategies and the messaging that they're doing, but they're directly, generating a decent amount of revenue.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a bunch of interesting applications like, oh, you viewed 5 pages, you looked at this product, now pop up this with this prompt to get somebody to engage with the customer service team. And I thought it was interesting. I was doing like a Gorgias YouTube demo, like for our internal resources, and came across how you're sort of almost pitching, like giving commissions now to the customer service team as well for driving additional sales. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a few companies that we know that are incentivizing them kind of like inbound sales reps. At the end of the month, they're looking at the sales they've generated and they're adding a bonus component to the agent's, compensation structure as well. So yeah, definitely kind of some innovative stuff there too.
So what's the, I don't want to say coolest, but I guess we can go with that. What's like the most interesting application of Gorgias you've seen recently that you think other brands should be looking at as something they might want to emulate?
Yeah. Are you talking specific to revenue or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah. So I think I think there's like the coolest thing about Gorgias is that we have this, so we call them rules, but really it's automation in the form of machine learning. So one of the things that we can do to make things just really easy for a support agent or to fully automate, to drive sales, whatever it is we have something called intent and sentiment detection. So anyone that's been in a help desk or set up a rule, even in I'm sure Klaviyo has intent and sentiment detection, but a lot of automation in customer support has traditionally been around keywords. So you're trying to, if someone sends an email or a chat, you're trying to pick up certain keywords, and then you can automatically tag that or assign it to a specific agent or do whatever you will. So with Gorgias, because we're so e-commerce focused, we've developed intents. So it's just a drop-down menu of order status or positive sentiment or exchange. And we're automatically understanding the intent or the sentiment of that customer. And then with that, you can do whatever you want. So you can route that to a specific queue or set of agents that are focused on sales, if it's like a pre-purchase inquiry, or you can, if it's something to do with canceling and their order hasn't shipped yet, you can route that to that specific team or department that can then handle that cancellation or exchange before it actually ships. So I think leveraging, so to kind of sum up, basically what Gorgias can do really well with automation is you can really understand what your customer is asking before they're asking it or before it gets to an agent. And then you have all of the data. So we integrate with, close to 100 apps within, the Shopify or BigCommerce ecosystem, including Klaviyo, what you mentioned. So you have basically all of the data about that customer from all of the different apps. You have the reviews that they've left. And so that just really helps you, with personalization, be able to personalize kind of how you're communicating with that customer. So I think that's really cool. The intent and sentiment and automation, and then also just the level of data that you have within the platform that an agent can use when talking with the customer.
Are there going to be any, I guess, like Gorgias agencies that specialize in sort of the rules and the macro build outs and stuff like that? Because there's sort of how I look at Klaviyo, there's a ability for the long tail, like really small businesses to use the platform, but then there's so much functionality that's in there that you really need to know like what the hell is going on. And like I don't really go into Gorgias frequently, which is something I'm trying to think about more and more now. Like, is that something we should be doing like as a retention agency? What are some of the ways that we could utilize it as like an agency service? But I log in there and I'm like, holy shit, like there is so much going on here. So how do you, like, from a customer success standpoint, are there just like power users at the brands that you're working with that at scale that are setting up all these rules and logic, or are there like consultants that'll come in and do that for them, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually a big focus. But to answer your question, yes, there are CX or customer support consultants, or a lot of the people that actually do this. They're called BPOs, business professional outsourcing agencies. So they actually have the agents, and a lot of them are very are trained and well equipped to be able to implement and set up some of the best practices with Gorgias around, some of the things we talked about with sales, or just, good practices for customer support. So definitely there are agencies that can help brands do that. And one thing that we're really focusing on On our partnership side is we're actually building out our academy to be able to better educate, people like you, Brandon, how about all of the functionality that we can do and how it ties to retention. And, you're growing businesses through email and SMS. So for example, like, I don't know if you know this, but we have an integration with Klaviyo, and you can send data from Gorgias of a customer, if a ticket was created or closed, or CSAT is less than 2 stars, and you can send that data to Klaviyo and segment your lists and target people based on data from Gorgias as well. And there's a couple of brands that are doing stuff like that. So so we're to answer your question, yes, there are, and we're building out more basically enablement and training to help someone who's focused on performance marketing and growth understand where Gorgias ties into that, and so that they can add those to their services as well.
Yeah, I think that's where the real power lies in any of these platforms, is the level and depth of integrations with the rest of the tech stack, because that's when you can start to really create unique experiences when you're leveraging, because these 3 or 4 different platforms, these are how they all integrate together, and this experience is only able to is only possible because of all 4 of them coming all together, which that's like the next step, I feel like, as opposed to just being a power user of a singular platform. It's like, how do we take all of them together to create these unique customer experiences?
And do you, I guess, question on that, like, you have a successful agency and you've been growing e-commerce business for a long time. Like, do you, like, when you're talking with a merchant right now, like, do you have a bundled kind of like retention service that encompasses like 3, 4, 5, 6 tools and you're doing everything? Or is it very like very specific, like, okay, so email marketing, SMS marketing, and these are separate? Or do you kind of have like a retention package that you try to work with merchants on?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of like a retention package. We'll have some brands that come to us and they like only want us to do email, or they only want us to do SMS. I'm less interested in that. Where I'm more interested is in taking over both email and SMS. And sometimes actually we won't even touch the campaigns. Like, we'll provide strategy and advice on that, but it might not make sense for the brand to have us batching and blasting 30 emails a week or a month, depending on like what they're doing. I'm more focused on the flow and automation side, because that's where you can really leverage some of these integrations at scale. But it also depends on where the brand is at in terms of their retention journey. Like, there's an education process as well. They might come to us with all these KPIs and metrics that they already know, or we might need to educate them. This is what you should be looking at. Oh, look at your LTV to CAC ratio. This is not good. This is what we are going to do to help improve that. And the tech stack is really just what enables us to do what we need to do. So a lot of times brands will come to us and I guess the best example would be Rebuy, because Rebuy serves a very specific application for us in retention, but it also does a whole bunch of other stuff too. So that's something that's been interesting to sort of figure out with the brands that we're working with, because there's like so much more they could be doing with it, but like, we're only working with them on retention and email and SMS. So that's where having like really close partnerships with the technology tools comes into play, because there's a little bit of like a shared almost merchant success component to that that has gotten interesting. But yeah, we have our tech stack. I mean, the tech stack is based on the fact that it all works with one another. So even if, let's say hypothetically, there was a customer service tool that was better than Gorgias, but it didn't integrate with, I don't know, Klaviyo or Kendo. Well, for one, I would argue it's not better. But second, we're not going to use them because we can't. The reason why we use Klaviyo for all of our email marketing isn't necessarily because the email tool itself is phenomenal. Like, they're all sort of the same in my opinion. Where it differentiates is the fact that everything else integrates within there, and you're able to create the personalized experiences and improve retention because of that. And so I think if I was like starting an app, I would probably almost spend like half of my time just making it play nicely with the other tools in the ecosystem, because there's been instances where we literally can't use something because it doesn't integrate with a tool that has a higher priority in terms of like the stepping ladder, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. Like, we're both talking a lot about the Shopify ecosystem right now, and that's really how Shopify has been so successful is because they have the partnership ecosystem, both on the technology side and on the services and agency side, all working together. Yeah. So completely agree when it comes to partnerships and integrations. If you have a tech company in this ecosystem and you don't integrate with the leading tools, and I think it's definitely going to be hard to grow and to educate merchants and also work with the, people like yourself that are running these businesses behind the scenes.
Something that I think will be interesting, not related to your tool, but for some of the other ones, they raised a fair amount of money. And well, I guess you did as well, but I wouldn't bucket you into this group. They raised a fair amount of money, and I don't necessarily know if the platform that they currently have just has like the depth to be able to merit that and to get like net new merchants onto the platform. And I guess you could look at it as like your apps that have very one like specific use case that a merchant would leverage it for, and they all integrate with each other. But now they're starting to encroach on one another a little bit. Like, oh, we do this, but now we're also doing this, but we had this tech partner that did this, but now we're doing it too. So where does that go? Because I think a lot of the Shopify apps are going to start looking for like more revenue that they can pick up from merchants, and the easiest way to do that is just to sort of broaden the products and services that are offered.
You're seeing that at the top there. You're seeing that with Yotpo, Klaviyo, and Attentive right now at its finest. They're all encroaching on each other, even though they've all been partners at one point or another. But yeah, I think that's what every hyper growth SaaS company is trying to do. They're trying to provide as much value and extract as much revenue from these merchants for the services that they provide. I think it's going to be impossible for each company to build everything perfectly. So partnerships and integrations will never go away. But I mean, Klaviyo like nails SMS, and they nail the like CRM play that I think they're making right now around really owning all of the data. Like, that's how Klaviyo has become Klaviyo. They're one of the biggest success stories in that ecosystem by far. So
I think it's got to be the greatest like case study ever in terms of just branding and perception, like their Klaviyo 1 rollout, because the level of like interest we've gotten now from more like enterprise merchants, and day one, the platform hasn't changed like literally at all. It's just perception. And like now it's a CDP, and like, well, it's always kind of been a CDP, but just the marketing and the messaging, and like now you're getting other types of businesses coming in. It's just fascinating to me because it isn't all just product. There's so many intangibles as you work your way up market that matter. And I just found that to be fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, and you can tell where Klaviyo is going right now, where they're trying to scale. I think they started with the long tail and the SMB, and they do a phenomenal job there. And I think now they're doing a big push for the enterprise, and even outside of the Shopify ecosystem, the more like Salesforce Commerce Cloud and custom carts and things like that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Super valuable. I think this is going to be one of the more, I guess, unique ones that we've had in terms of reframing how brands can start to look at look at a channel in an entirely new way. But before we hop off here, can you just let everybody know where folks can find you and Gorgias online?
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to Gorgias, you can find Gorgias on our website. It's gorgias.com. I know it's pronounced differently. So gorgias.com, you can find us. If you're looking for me, I'm on Twitter as well. My last name McClennan, if it's going to be in this episode, if you have it there. So it's just at B McClennan. You can also reach out to me at my email, which is just billy@gorgias.com. And if anybody has any questions about the product or the platform, or you're an existing Gorgias merchant, you want to get in touch, feel free to contact me in any of those places.
Awesome. Well, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thanks, Billy, for coming on. And we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Brandon.